I showed up to my wife's law firm opening party only to see everyone laughing and pointing. TESTRUN husband is here. Then my wife handed me an envelope. The first job of my firm is our divorce, sign and leave. So I walked away. Quietly canceled every payment, party, trip and pulled out my $20 million investment to her firm. Minutes later, my phone lit up with 456 missed calls. And someone showed up at my door. You know what they say about karma? Sometimes she's a patient who takes her sweet time. But tonight, as I'm walking into the Hilton atrium wearing my best Tom Ford suit and a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos, I have no clue that karma is about to clock in for overtime. The place is absolutely buzzing. Crystal chandeliers casting rainbow prisms across marble floors that probably cost more than most people's cars. I can smell success in the air mixed with overpriced champagne. And that particular brand of arrogance that only comes from lawyers who think they've made it big. The irony? Every damn penny of this extravaganza came from my bank account. I'm Marcus Hale, 42 years old, and I've got that self-made swagger that comes from turning a small tech startup into a multi-million-dollar empire while everyone else was still figuring out how to use email without accidentally hitting reply all. Tonight's supposed to be the grand opening of Hale & Winters LLP, my wife's dream law firm that I've been bankrolling like some kind of legal sugar daddy. As I make my way through the crowd, nodding at faces I recognize from country club dinners and charity galas, I'm actually feeling pretty damn good about myself. This is my moment, too, right? I mean, without Marcus Hale's deep pockets, there wouldn't be any Hale & Winter LLP. There wouldn't be this fancy party with its ice sculptures and champagne fountains that look like they belong in a Vegas hotel lobby. But then I hear it. This snide little comment that cuts through the party chatter like a knife through butter. Some young associate, probably fresh out of law school and still wet behind the ears, leans over to his buddy and says with a smirk, well, looks like the TESTRUN husband is here. TESTRUN husband. The words hit me like a slap across the face. But I keep walking, keep smiling, because that's what you do when you're Marcus Hale. You don't let some nobody in a cheap suit see you sweat. But inside, something cold and sharp is starting to twist in my gut. I scan the room looking for Clara. And there she is, my wife of 8 years, standing at the podium like she owns the world. And damn it, she looks absolutely stunning. Her dark hair is pulled back in this perfect chignon that probably took her stylist 2 hours to achieve. And she's wearing that diamond necklace I bought her for our anniversary last year. The one that cost more than most people make in a decade. She's glowing under those chandelier lights, fielding congratulations and air kisses from everyone who matters in the New York legal scene. Judge Robert Winters, her father and one of the most powerful men in the city's judicial system, is beaming with pride from his front row seat. Victor Cross, her business partner and the guy I've been writing checks to for the past 2 years, is standing just off to the side looking smug as hell in his custom-tailored Armani. Clara catches my eye and smiles. But something's off. It's not the warm, genuine smile I fell in love with all those years ago. This one's different, calculated, like she's already rehearsed what comes next. She taps her champagne glass with a silver spoon, and the room falls silent. Every face turns toward the podium. Every conversation stops mid-sentence. You could hear a pin drop in this place, which is saying something considering we're in the middle of Manhattan. Ladies and gentlemen, Clara begins, her voice carrying that smooth, confident tone she uses in court. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate the launch of Hale & Winters LLP. This firm represents everything I've worked for, everything I've dreamed of since I was a little girl sitting in my father's courtroom. The crowd murmurs appreciatively. Someone shouts, "Here, here," and raises their glass. But then Clara does something that makes my blood run cold. She reaches into her clutch, the same Chanel bag I bought her for Christmas, and pulls out a manila envelope. Plain, unremarkable, the kind of envelope that could contain anything from tax documents to grocery coupons. However, she continues, and I swear the temperature in the room drops about 10 degrees before we officially open our doors to serve justice in this city. I have one piece of business to attend to. She walks down from the podium, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown timer. Every step brings her closer to where I'm standing, and every step makes that cold feeling in my stomach spread a little further. The crowd parts like the Red Sea. As she approaches, I can feel hundreds of eyes on me. Can hear the whispers starting to buzz around the room like angry wasps. Someone's phone camera flashes, then another. Clara stops right in front of me, close enough that I can smell her perfume, the same Chanel No. 5 she's worn since our second date. She's still smiling, but now I can see what that smile really is. It's not love or gratitude or even basic human decency. It's pity mixed with something that looks disturbingly like satisfaction. "Marcus," she says loud enough for the whole room to hear. "You've been so generous, so supportive, and I want everyone here to know that the first case Hale & Winters LLP will be handling is very close to my heart." She hands me the envelope like she's presenting me with an award at some twisted ceremony. The paper feels heavy in my hands, weighted with possibilities I don't want to consider. "The first case for my law firm," she announces, turning back to address the crowd with that same practice smile as my divorce. "Marcus, I need you to sign these papers and leave tonight." The words hang in the air like smoke from a gun barrel. For a moment, everything is perfectly silent. Then the applause starts, scattered at first, then growing louder. Some people are gasping, covering their mouths with their hands like they're watching a car crash in slow motion. Others are filming with their phones, probably already uploading to social media with hashtags like #LawyerLife and #PowerMove. I stand there holding that envelope, feeling like the biggest fool who ever walked the earth. This is my money funding this party. These are my connections filling this room. I'm the one who made this entire night possible, and now I'm being dismissed like some kind of hired help who's overstayed his welcome. The humiliation should be crushing. The betrayal should bring me to my knees. 8 years of marriage, 2 years of supporting her dream firm, $20 million of my own money. All of it reduced to a manila envelope, and a public execution in front of everyone who matters in New York's legal community. But you know what? I don't shout. I don't throw the envelope back in her face. I don't cause the scene that everyone's probably expecting, the dramatic meltdown that would give them something to gossip about at their country club brunches for the next 6 months. Instead, I do something that probably surprises everyone in that room, maybe even myself. I fold that envelope in half, slide it into my jacket pocket, and walk toward the exit with my head held high. As I push through the crowd, I can hear the whispers starting up again. Can feel their eyes following my every move. But I keep walking past the ice sculptures and champagne fountains, past the marble floors and crystal chandeliers, past everything I paid for but apparently never owned. Outside, the New York night air hits my face like a blessing. I loosen my tie, let the cool breeze wash away the stuffiness of that overpriced hotel ballroom. And then, standing there on the sidewalk with the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement, I do something that would probably shock everyone still inside celebrating my public humiliation. I smile. Not the fake practice smile I've been wearing all evening, but a real one. Faint, but genuine. See, here's the thing about being Marcus Hale that none of those people in that room understand. I didn't get where I am by being stupid. I didn't build a multi-million-dollar empire by trusting people at their word. And I sure as hell didn't survive in the cutthroat world of business by not having a few contingency plans up my sleeve. They think they've won. They think this is the end of the story. The foolish husband who got played by his ambitious wife and her slick business partner. They think Marcus Hale just got taken for the ride of his life. They haven't seen anything yet. The real game, it's just getting started. You know what's funny about betrayal? It's like food poisoning. At first, you're just confused and uncomfortable, but then it hits you all at once, and suddenly you're seeing everything with crystal clarity. By the time I get back to my apartment on the Upper East Side, that clarity is burning through me like acid. I pour myself 3 fingers of Macallan 25. The good stuff I save for special occasions, though. I'm pretty sure getting publicly divorced at your wife's law firm launch party qualifies as special in the most twisted way possible. The amber liquid burns going down, but it's nothing compared to the fire that's been building in my chest since I walked out of that circus. My apartment feels different now, quieter. All those little touches that scream successful married couple. The matching throw pillows Clara insisted on, the wedding photos in their expensive frames. The abstract art she picked out because it was investment pieces. Now they just look like props from a play I didn't know I was starring in. But I'm not here for a pity party. I've got work to do. I head straight to my study, past the floor-to-ceiling windows that offer a $1 million view of Central Park. Most people think the view is what makes this room special, but they'd be wrong. The real magic is behind the custom-built bookshelf where a hidden panel slides away to reveal my private safe. This isn't some dinky hotel room safe where you stash your passport and a few $100. This is a proper vault. Fireproof, waterproof, and big enough to hold everything that really matters. I punch in the code and the heavy door swings open with a satisfying click. Inside, organized with the kind of obsessive precision that would make a Swiss banker weep with joy, are my primary assets, not stocks or bonds or crypto wallets. Those are for amateurs. No, these are the documents that separate the players from the played, the hunters from the hunted. I pull out the first binder, thick as a phone book and labeled in my own handwriting. Hale and Winters LLP Financial Structure. Every page tells a story. And boy, is it a doozy. Here's what Clara and her smug partner Victor didn't understand about Marcus Hale. I don't just throw money at things and hope for the best. When I invest, I document everything. When I write a check, I create a paper trail that could be followed by a blind accountant with dyslexia. The first section shows the initial seed money. $5 million transferred from my personal account to establish the firm's operating capital. Clara thought it was a gift, a loving husband supporting his wife's dreams. In reality, It was a loan with very specific terms that she never bothered to read because she was too busy picking out office furniture and planning launch parties. Next up, the office lease. That gorgeous corner suite on Madison Avenue with the mahogany conference table and the view of the Chrysler building. The one that costs $40 grand a month. Yeah, that's in my name. The lease agreement sits right here in black and white along with the security deposit receipt for $200,000. I flipped through more pages. Each one a little insurance policy I never thought I'd need to cash in. Interior design costs another $250,000 for Clara's vision of sophisticated legal elegance. The custom law library with its first edition legal texts and hand-carved shelving, 6 figures. The state-of-the-art computer system and case management software, another $100 red grand. But the raw kicker is the recruitment expenses. Clara and Victor went on a hiring spree like they were building the legal equivalent of the Yankees. They poached senior associates from white shoe firms, offering signing bonuses and inflated salaries that would make Wall Street executives jealous. Every single one of those offers was backed by my money. And every single contract includes a clause that ties their employment to the firm's financial stability. As I'm going through these documents, something starts bubbling up from deep in my chest. At first, I think it might be another wave of humiliation, but then I realize what it actually is. Laughter. Dark, bitter laughter that tastes like revenge served at room temperature. Because here's the thing that's becoming crystal clear as I review my meticulous record keeping. I haven't been Clara's husband for the past 2 years. I've been her bank, a walking talking ATM with a wedding ring and a joint checking account. Every dinner party where she introduced me as my husband, the tech entrepreneur, she was really saying my financier who doesn't understand law. Every time she asked my opinion on hiring decisions or office locations, she was just being polite while spending my money. Every passionate speech about building something meaningful and lasting, she was talking about building it on my dime while planning to cut me out of the picture. I pull out my laptop and start cross-referencing the documents with my bank statements. The pattern is so obvious now that I can't believe I missed it. Every major expense for the firm coincided with Clara working late nights, taking client dinners that always seemed to include Victor, and coming home with that glow that I stupidly thought was professional satisfaction. $20 million. That's what the grand total comes to when you add up every check, every wire transfer, every credit card payment I've made to support Hale and Winters LLP. $20 million to fund my wife's affair and finance my own public humiliation. But here's where Clara and Victor made their fatal mistake. They assumed I was just another rich guy who got successful by luck and stayed successful by throwing money at problems. They thought I was the kind of Mark who signs papers without reading them and trusts people because it's easier than being suspicious. They clearly never did their homework on how Marcus Hale actually operates. Every single one of these transactions was structured as a business investment, not a marital gift. Every contract includes performance clauses, accountability measures, and most importantly, exit strategies. Clara never read the fine print because she was too busy planning her grand debut as New York's hottest new legal power couple. I close the binder and reach for the next one: corporate structure and silent partner agreements. This is where things get really interesting. See, when you're putting $20 million into a startup law firm, even one run by your loving wife, you don't just write checks and hope for the best, you create legal structures that protect your investment. You establish yourself as a silent partner with very specific rights and responsibilities. Rights like the ability to freeze corporate accounts if fiscal responsibility is questioned. Rights like mandatory disclosure of all major expenditures. Rights like unilateral withdrawal of invested capital under breach of fiduciary duty clauses. The beauty of it all is that Clara signed every single one of these agreements herself. She was so eager to get her hands on my money that she barely glanced at the corporate documents. She probably assumed they were just legal boilerplate. The kind of paperwork you sign when your husband is being overly cautious about protecting his assets. I lean back in my chair and take another sip of that Macallan, savoring both the whiskey and the irony. At this very moment, Clara and Victor are probably still at the Hilton, basking in the afterglow of their power move, accepting congratulations from all those legal eagles who witnessed my public takedown. They think they've won. They think Marcus Hale just got played by the two smartest people in the room. They're probably already planning how to spend my $20 million, maybe even joking about how easy it was to separate a fool from his money. What they don't realize is that Marcus Hale doesn't get played. He plays the game better than everyone else. And sometimes that means letting people think they're winning right up until the moment they realize they've been checkmated. I close the safe and pour myself another drink. Tomorrow, the real education begins. Tonight, I'm just a guy in an expensive apartment surrounded by evidence of the biggest mistake his wife ever made. But hey, we all make mistakes. The trick is making sure yours aren't fatal. You know what separates successful people from everyone else? Timing. Not just knowing what to do, but knowing exactly when to do it. And as I'm sitting in my study at 2:47 a.m., nursing my third glass of Macallan and staring at my laptop screen, I realize that my timing has never been better. The city outside my windows is mostly asleep, but I'm wide awake with the kind of clarity that only comes from having your world turned upside down and finally seeing it right side up. Clara and Victor are probably passed out in some 5-star hotel suite right now, drunk on champagne and their own perceived brilliance. They think they've pulled off the heist of the century, stealing $20 million and a law firm from Marcus Hale while making him look like a fool in front of half of New York's legal establishment. What they don't know is that Marcus Hale doesn't sleep when there's work to be done. And tonight, there's definitely work to be done. I crack my knuckles and open up my laptop, the screen's blue glow reflecting off the empty whiskey glass beside me. First stop, the firm's online banking portal. Clara probably assumes I don't have access anymore. Maybe even changed the passwords in some amateur attempt at digital security. She always was too trusting, too willing to believe that people are exactly what they appear to be on the surface. But here's the thing about being the guy who bankrolled the entire operation. You make sure you always have a way in. Those credentials I memorized when we first set up the corporate account still working perfectly. The backup email address tied to password recovery. That's my personal Gmail account, not Clara's. The security questions, all answered with information only I would know. I'm in the system within 30 seconds, and what I see makes me smile for the first time since that disaster at the Hilton. The account balance shows exactly what I expected. $847,000 in operating capital, sitting pretty in the main business checking account. There's also the money market account with another $1.22 million in reserve funds and the expense account Victor's been using to fund his and Clara's business dinners at the city's most expensive restaurants. This is going to be fun. I start with the smallest moves first. The kind of financial adjustments that won't trigger any immediate red flags, but will definitely cause some interesting conversations come Monday morning. The automatic payment system that handles the firm's monthly expenses, office lease, utilities, cleaning service, coffee suppliers, gets a little adjustment. Not cancelled, mind you, just temporarily suspended due to account verification requirements. Next up, the vendor payments. That fancy catering company that provided tonight's champagne fountain and caviar service, their invoice payment just got frozen pending financial review. The florist who created those elaborate centerpieces, same deal. The sound system rental, the photographer, the valet service. Every single vendor who contributed to my public humiliation just got moved to payment pending status. But I'm just getting warmed up. The real masterpiece is the payroll system. All those hotshot lawyers Clara and Victor poach from competing firms, the ones with their signing bonuses and 6-figure salaries and attitudes that could cut glass, their direct deposit information just encountered a small technical glitch that will require manual resolution. Nothing permanent, you understand? Just a temporary hiccup that might make their mortgage payments a little more interesting this month. I lean back in my chair and take another sip of whiskey, savoring the smooth burn as much as the elegant simplicity of what I'm doing. This isn't some dramatic corporate raid with hostile takeovers and screaming board meetings. This is surgical precision, the kind of quiet destruction that happens in spreadsheets and database queries while the targets sleep peacefully in their beds. But the real coup de grace is still coming. I navigate to the investment management section of the portal where the crown jewel of my financial architecture sits waiting. My silent partner withdrawal clause. It's buried in subsection 7.3 of the corporate partnership agreement. The part that Clara's lawyer probably skimmed over because it looked like standard boilerplate language. What it actually says in very precise legal terminology is that any partner who contributed more than 75% of the firm's initial capitalization has the right to immediate asset recovery in the event of material breach of fiduciary responsibility or dissolution of partnership confidence. $20 million in Clara's public divorce announcement at the firm's launch party. Victor's smirk as he watched me get handed those papers. I'd say that qualifies as material breach of just about everything. I click through the withdrawal process, each screen asking me to confirm that yes, I really want to do this and yes, I understand the consequences and yes, I'm absolutely certain. The system is designed to make you think twice, to give you multiple opportunities to back down from what it knows is going to be a financial nuclear option. But Marcus Hale doesn't back down. Not when he's been played, not when he's been humiliated, and definitely not when he's got 20 million reasons to make his point crystal clear. The final screen is beautiful in its simplicity. Withdrawal request submitted. Funds will be transferred within 24 to 48 business hours pending final documentation review. Below that, a number that makes my heart skip a beat. $20 million. $20 million about to disappear from Hale and Winters LLP's accounts like morning mist in the summer sun. I hit submit and lean back to watch the digital wheels start turning. Somewhere in the depths of the banking system servers, electronic signals are already starting to flow, beginning the process that will transform Clara's dream firm from a powerhouse startup into a very expensive pile of legal documents. The beauty of it all is the timing. It's Saturday night or Sunday morning. Technically, The banks won't start processing anything until Monday, which means Clara and Victor have roughly 40 hours to enjoy their victory before they discover what Marcus Hale's version of a divorce settlement actually looks like. I pour myself one more glass of that Macallan and walk over to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The city spreads out below me like a circuit board, all glittering lights and hidden connections. Somewhere out there, Clara is probably sleeping the sleep of the victorious, dreaming about her new life as New York's hottest legal celebrity. What she doesn't know yet is that you can't build a legal empire on someone else's money and then expect them to just walk away when you're done with them. You can't humiliate Marcus Hale in front of half the city's power brokers and assume there won't be consequences. They wanted a scene at that party, some dramatic breakdown they could gossip about over their country club brunches. What they're getting instead is something much more devastating. A silent storm that's going to tear through their perfect little world like a Category 5 hurricane. The best part, they'll never see it coming until it's already too late. I raise my glass to the sleeping city and smile. Monday morning is going to be very, very interesting. Monday morning hits New York City like a freight train. And I'm sitting in my kitchen sipping Colombian coffee that costs more per pound than most people spend on groceries, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. It's shaping up to be a beautiful day, the kind that makes you grateful to be alive and absolutely thrilled to be Marcus Hale. My phone has been buzzing since about 6:30 a.m., lighting up like a Christmas tree with incoming calls, texts, and voicemails. The caller ID reads like a who's who of people who suddenly need to talk to me very, very urgently. Clara, 47 missed calls and counting. Victor Cross, 12 calls, each one probably more desperate than the last. And a parade of board members, investors, and vendors whose names I recognize from the very expensive party they threw on Saturday night. I ignore every single one of them. There's something deeply satisfying about having information that other people desperately need while maintaining complete radio silence. It's like being the only person with an umbrella in a thunderstorm. You can choose who stays dry and who gets soaked to the bone. My doorman's voice crackles through the intercom at exactly 10 a.m. right on schedule. Mr. Hey, sir. There's a young lady here from the law firm, says it's urgent. Name's Sophie something. Sophie Lang, Clara's assistant, fresh out of college and probably making 30 grand a year to fetch coffee and manage calendars for people who think they're changing the world. Poor kid probably has no idea she's about to become a messenger in the most expensive game of chess New York has seen all year. Send her up, Frank, I tell the intercom, then settle back into my leather chair with my coffee mug and the morning edition of the Wall Street Journal. Nothing quite like reading about other people's financial disasters while orchestrating your own masterpiece. The knock on my door comes exactly 3 minutes later. Soft, hesitant, the kind of knock that says, please don't shoot the messenger. I take my time answering, letting her stew in the hallway for a moment while I finish the article I'm reading about market volatility in emerging tech sectors. When I finally open the door, Sophie Lang looks like she's been through a blender set on Corporate Nightmare. Her usually perfect blonde hair is pulled back in a messy bun. Her makeup is smudged like she's been crying or rubbing her eyes. And she's clutching a manila folder against her chest like it's a life preserver. Mr. Hale, she says, and her voice actually cracks a little. Thank you for seeing me. I know this is irregular, Sophie. Right. I step aside and gesture for her to come in. Clara's assistant. Coffee. You look like you could use it. She shakes her head quickly, too wound up to sit still. I can't stay long. The firm is there's a situation, a big situation. I pour myself a fresh cup and lean against the kitchen counter, watching her with the kind of mild interest you'd show to a particularly entertaining street performer. Oh, what kind of situation? Everything's collapsing. The words tumble out of her like water through a broken dam. The payroll system crashed this morning. Nobody got paid. The vendors are calling nonstop saying their payments were rejected. The catering company is threatening to sue over the party expenses. Even the coffee service got cut off. Do you know how lawyers function without coffee, Mr. Hale? I take a slow sip from my mug and make a thoughtful noise. Sounds complicated. The investors are furious, she continues, pacing back and forth in my entryway like a caged animal. Judge Winters has been calling every hour demanding explanations. Victor locked himself in his office and won't come out. And Clara, she stops pacing and looks at me with eyes that are definitely on the verge of tears. Clara says, it's all just a computer glitch. Some kind of banking error that will be resolved by end of business today. And what do you think, Sophie? She bites her lower lip, clearly wrestling with whether to speak her mind to the man who just got publicly divorced by her boss. I think she says carefully that computer glitches don't usually involve $20 million disappearing from corporate accounts. Smart girl, smarter than her boss. Anyway, I'm not a financial expert, I tell her, setting down my coffee mug and walking over to my desk. But that does sound like more than a glitch. I pull open the top drawer and retrieve a cream-colored envelope. The kind of expensive stationery that screams serious business without having to say a word. Inside are 3 sheets of legal paper covered in my lawyer's precise handwriting. Terms and conditions that Clara is going to absolutely hate, but will have no choice but to consider. I need you to deliver this to Clara. I say, handing Sophie the envelope directly to her. Don't give it to Victor. Don't leave it with the receptionist. Don't put it in her inbox. Hand it to Clara personally and tell her she has exactly 24 hours to respond. Sophie takes the envelope like it might explode in her hands. What's in it? A way out of this mess, I say simply. The only way out, actually. Her eyes search my face, probably looking for some hint of mercy or compassion or basic human decency. What she finds instead is the cold, calculating stare of a man who's done playing games. Mr. Hale, she says quietly. Is this about the divorce? Because if it is, maybe we could. Sophie, I interrupt her gently but firmly. This isn't about the divorce. This is about business. $20 million worth of business that your bosses seem to have forgotten belongs to someone. She nods slowly, finally understanding that she's not just delivering a message. She's carrying the terms of surrender from the winning side to the losing side. 24 hours, I repeat, not a minute more. And Sophie, make sure Clara understands that this is the only offer she's going to get. The next conversation won't be nearly as pleasant. After she leaves, I walk back to my kitchen window and look out at the city below. Somewhere in a glass tower on Madison Avenue, Clara is probably having the worst Monday of her professional life. The phone calls, the panicked meetings, the growing realization that her dream firm is turning into a nightmare faster than she can damage control. I pour myself another cup of coffee and check my phone. 53 missed calls now, plus a text message from Victor that just says, "Call me now" in all caps. I delete the text without reading it twice and turn my phone to silent mode. The beautiful thing about being Marcus Hale is that when you hold all the cards, you get to decide when the game ends. And this game, it's just getting started. 24 hours, Clara, the clock is ticking. Friday morning arrives with all the subtlety of a demolition crew. And I'm standing in front of my bathroom mirror at 7:30 a.m. adjusting a tie that costs more than most people's rent while mentally preparing for what's about to be the most satisfying business meeting of my entire career. Today's ensemble is what I like to call corporate executioner chic. Charcoal Tom Ford suit that fits like it was sewn directly onto my body. Italian leather shoes that could probably finance a small car. And a smile that would make a shark jealous. When you're about to walk into a room full of lawyers who think they've been playing chess while you've been playing 4D chess, presentation matters. The ride to Hale and Winters LLP takes exactly 14 minutes in Manhattan traffic, which gives me just enough time to review my notes and savor the irony of walking into a building whose lease I personally guarantee. The lobby looks the same as it did when Clara first showed me the space 2 years ago. All marble and brass and aspirational grandeur designed to intimidate clients into paying premium rates. What's different is the energy. Instead of the confident buzz of legal eagles circling their prey, there's a nervous tension in the air that you could cut with a subpoena. The receptionist, a young woman whose name I've never bothered to learn, looks up at me with eyes wide enough to suggest she knows exactly why I'm here. "Mr. Hale," she stammers. They're waiting for you in the conference room." Of course, they are. When Marcus Hale schedules a 9 a.m. meeting, smart people show up early and nervous people show up earlier. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor gives me 30 seconds to appreciate the view of Manhattan spreading out below, like a game board I'm about to rearrange. When the doors open, I can hear voices through the conference room's glass walls, urgent whispers, and what sounds like someone practicing damage control talking points. I push through the mahogany doors at exactly 9:00 a.m. because punctuality is just another form of power and survey the carnage that used to be Clara's dream team. The conference room that once hosted champagne toasts and victory celebrations now looks like a war room staffed by people who've already lost the war. Elaine Porter, the senior counsel who Clara poached from a white shoe firm with promises of partnership and prestige, is sitting at the far end of the table, staring at her coffee cup like it might contain answers to questions she's afraid to ask. 2 junior associates, whose names I've never bothered to learn, are huddled together near the window, probably calculating how quickly they can update their LinkedIn profiles and start sending out resumes. The firm's accountant, a nervous little man who always looks like he's apologizing for existing, has spreadsheets spread out in front of him like tea leaves he's trying to read for signs of financial salvation. And then there's Clara sitting at the head of the table in the same chair where she used to hold court during partners' meetings, looking like she hasn't slept since our conversation 3 nights ago. Her usually perfect appearance has been replaced by the kind of frazzled desperation that comes from trying to hold together something that's determined to fall apart. But the most telling detail in the entire room is the empty chair where Victor Cross should be sitting. "Where's your partner?" I ask, settling into the seat directly across from Clara with the kind of casual confidence that says, "I belong here more than anyone else in the room." Victor is indisposed, Clara says carefully. He's been dealing with some personal issues since Monday. Personal issues. That's a polite way of saying nervous breakdown brought on by the sudden realization that he's been screwing around with someone else's wife while spending someone else's money. Word around the legal community is that Victor hasn't left his apartment since Tuesday, surviving on Chinese takeout and what I imagine is a steady diet of panic attacks. Well, I say, opening my briefcase and pulling out a folder thick enough to choke a horse. I suppose we'll have to proceed without him. I spread the documents across the mahogany table like a dealer shuffling cards. Each page representing another nail in the coffin of Clara's legal empire. Partnership dissolution agreements, asset recovery forms, employment termination notices, and the piece to resistance. A restructuring proposal that would make Gordon Gekko weep with appreciation. As you all know, I begin addressing the room with the kind of calm authority that comes from holding all the cards. Hale and Winters LLP is currently experiencing what we might charitably call a cash flow problem. Elaine Porter finally looks up from her coffee cup. Mr. Hale, if this is about the withdrawal of your investment, I'm sure we can work out some kind of payment plan. This isn't about payment plans. Elaine, this is about fundamental restructuring. I slide a copy of my terms across the table to each person in the room. These are my conditions for continued operation of this firm. The silence that follows is the kind you get in emergency rooms right before doctors deliver bad news. Everyone's reading, but nobody's speaking, probably because they're all trying to process the magnitude of what they're looking at. You want Clara to resign as managing partner? Elaine's voice comes out as barely more than a whisper. I want Clara to resign from any operational role in this firm. I correct. She can maintain a position as counsel, but she will have no decision-making authority, no client contact, and no access to firm finances. And Victor asks one of the junior associates. Victor Cross is terminated immediately with no severance, no references, and a non-compete clause that will keep him from practicing law in New York for the next 5 years. Clara finally speaks up. Her voice hollow. Marcus, you're destroying everything we built. Everything I built, I correct her gently. While you were playing law firm, I was actually running a business. The business that kept this place afloat for 2 years while you and Victor were playing house with my money. I stand up and walk to the window, looking out at the city that Clara once thought she was going to conquer. My $20 million will be repaid in structured installments over the next 10 years with interest. I will assume 2 permanent board seats, including the position of Financial Oversight Director with veto power over any expenditure exceeding $10,000. That's essentially a hostile takeover. Elaine stammers. No. I turned back to face the room and for the first time since this whole thing started, I let them see exactly how much I've enjoyed watching their little empire crumble. A hostile takeover is when someone steals your company. This is what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you and discover it has very sharp teeth. Clara's hands are shaking as she picks up the pen I've placed in front of her. If I sign this, I'll be nothing more than an employee in my own firm. Your firm? I walked back to the table and leaned down so that my face is level with hers. Clara, this stopped being your firm the moment you decided to serve me divorce papers at a party I paid for. What you're looking at now is the Marcus Hale version of a settlement offer. She stares at the signature line for what feels like an eternity, probably running through all the alternatives in her mind. Fight me in court with lawyers she can't afford. Try to start over somewhere else with a reputation that's been nuked from orbit. Declare bankruptcy and watch 20 years of legal career go down the drain. When she finally signs her name, the pen scratches across the paper like fingernails on a chalkboard. One by one, the other partners sign their copies. Each signature another step in what history will probably remember as the most efficient corporate coup in Manhattan legal history. As I'm packing up my briefcase, Elaine Porter clears her throat. Mr. Hale, what happens to the rest of us? You keep your jobs, I say simply. You keep your salaries. You keep your benefits. The only thing that changes is that this firm will now be run by someone who actually knows how to run a business. I'm almost to the door when Clara's voice stops me. Marcus, she says, her voice barely audible. Was this always the plan? Even from the beginning, I turn back and look at her one last time. This woman I was married to for 8 years, who I trusted with my money and my heart, who I watched build her dreams on the foundation of my bank account before she decided she didn't need the foundation anymore. No, Clara, I tell her honestly, the plan was to love you and support your dreams and grow old together. But plans change when people do stupid things. I close the door behind me with a soft click, leaving behind the wreckage of Clara's empire and the birth of something entirely new. Outside on the street, I pull out my phone and dial my accountant. Jameson, it's Marcus. Yes, it went exactly as planned. Start the paperwork for the restructuring. And Jameson, make sure the new letterhead reads, Hale Legal Partners. I think it has a nice ring to it. 2 weeks after I basically nuked my wife's legal empire from orbit, I find myself standing in front of a converted townhouse in Brooklyn that looks like it's been through more battles than a Civil War battlefield. The paint is peeling, the front steps are cracked, and there's a fire escape that probably violates about 17 building codes. But something about this place feels more real than all the marble and mahogany I've been dealing with lately. This is where the magic happens, apparently. Phoenix Legal Collective. A name that would make corporate lawyers laugh until they cried, but somehow fits perfectly with the scrappy energy radiating from this building like heat from a furnace. I'm here because my lawyer, Patricia Wells, mentioned something about opportunities in emerging legal markets during our post-coup last week. What she actually meant was, there's this crazy young lawyer in Brooklyn who's making the big firms nervous, and maybe you should check her out before someone else does. The reception area looks like it was decorated by someone who shopped exclusively at garage sales and IKEA's bargain bin. Mismatched chairs, a coffee table that's probably older than most of the staff, and walls covered with newspaper clippings about cases they've won against corporations that could buy and sell this entire building without blinking. But here's the thing about Marcus Hale. I didn't get where I am by judging books by their covers. Some of the most profitable investments I've ever made started in places that looked like they were one health inspection away from being condemned. Mr. Hale, a voice calls from across the room, and I turn to see a woman who's probably young enough to be carded at restaurants, but carries herself with the kind of confidence that usually takes decades to develop. I'm Lydia Torres. Thank you for coming. Lydia Torres looks exactly like what you'd expect from someone running a legal collective in Brooklyn. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that says, "I don't have time for fancy styling." Jeans that have probably seen more courtrooms than some lawyers see in their entire careers. And eyes that burn with the kind of intensity you usually only find in people who've got something to prove to the world. Miss Torres. I shake her hand, noting the firm grip that doesn't try to overcompensate, but doesn't apologize for existing either. Interesting operation you've got here. She laughs, and it's the kind of genuine sound that I haven't heard in legal circles for longer than I care to admit. That's one way to put it. Come on, let me show you around before you decide whether we're brilliant visionaries or completely insane. The tour that follows is like stepping into an alternate universe where lawyers actually give a damn about something other than billable hours and partnership tracks. The office space is cramped and chaotic with case files stacked on every available surface and whiteboards covered in strategy notes that look like they were written by someone planning a military campaign. This is our war room, Lydia says, gesturing to a conference room that's about the size of Clara's old office closet. We handle about 40 cases at any given time. Wrongful evictions, immigration rights, class action suits against landlords who think heat is optional. In January, I pick up a case file from the table. Martinez versus Blackstone Property Management. A family of 5 getting evicted from their apartment because their toddler's crying supposedly violated the quiet enjoyment clause in their lease. The kind of case that big firms would settle quietly for nuisance value. Except these people are fighting it all the way to appeals court. What's your success rate? I ask, genuinely curious. Depends how you measure success, Lydia replies, leading me to another room where 3 lawyers who look like they're barely old enough to vote are huddled around a computer screen. If you mean, how often do we get our clients exactly what they're asking for? It's about 60%. If you mean, how often do we keep people from getting completely screwed over by corporations with unlimited legal budgets? It's closer to 90. We stop in front of a bulletin board covered with thank you letters, newspaper clippings, and what looks like a hand-drawn picture from a kid whose family probably didn't get evicted because of the work these people do. It's the kind of wall decoration you'd never see at Hale Legal Partners, where success is measured in billable hours and partnership distribution. Mr. Hale, Lydia says, and for the first time since I arrived, her voice gets serious. I'm going to be straight with you. We're broke. Not cash flow problems broke or waiting for receivables broke. We're choosing between office rent and employee health insurance broke. I appreciate the honesty. In my experience, people who are willing to admit they're drowning are usually the ones worth throwing a life preserver to. How broke? I ask. We've got about 6 weeks of operating capital left, assuming nobody gets sick and the heating system doesn't completely die before spring. Our biggest corporate case just settled for a fraction of what we were hoping for. And the city cut funding for legal aid programs by 30%. She leads me to her office, which is basically a closet with a window and enough legal books to stock a small library. The desk is covered with financial statements that paint a picture of an organization that's been running on passion and coffee for longer than anyone should have too. We could take corporate clients, she continues, settling into a chair that looks like it came from a 1970s yard sale, charge premium rates for routine contract work, maybe do some regulatory compliance for tech startups. But that's not why we got into law. Why did you get into law? I ask. Because something tells me the answer is going to be refreshingly different from to make partner by 30 and buy a house in the Hamptons. Because the system is rigged, she says, simply because corporate lawyers make more in a month than most people make in a year while families get evicted because they can't afford legal representation. Because immigration courts have a 97% conviction rate when people represent themselves, but a 60% acquit rate when they have competent counsel. She pulls out a folder and spreads some papers across her desk. We're not trying to get rich, Mr. Hale. We're trying to level the playing field just enough so that having money isn't the only thing that determines whether you get justice. I look at the financial projections, the case files, the thank you letters, and something clicks into place that I wasn't expecting. This isn't just another investment opportunity or another way to diversify my portfolio. This is the anti-Clara. This is what Clara's firm could have been if she'd actually cared about practicing law instead of playing lawyer for the cameras. What would you do with $10 million? I ask. Lydia's eyes widen like I just asked her what she'd do if aliens landed on the courthouse steps. 10 million? Are you serious? Dead serious. 10 million in seed funding in exchange for 40% equity and a board seat. What would you build? She doesn't hesitate, which tells me she's been thinking about this conversation long before I walk through her door. Expand to all 5 boroughs. Hire 20 more attorneys. Create a training program for law students who want to do public interest work but can't afford to take unpaid internships. Set up a legal clinic in every neighborhood where people can get real advice instead of just forms to fill out. And then change the game. Make it so that having a corporate legal team doesn't automatically mean you win. Level the playing field so that justice isn't just for people who can afford it. I pull out my checkbook. Yes, I still carry an actual checkbook because some things are too important for electronic transfers and write out a number that makes Lydia's eyes fill with tears. $10 million. Not a loan with complicated terms and performance clauses. Not an investment with exit strategies and profit-sharing agreements. Just seed money for someone who wants to fight the good fight and actually has the balls to do it. Mr. Hale, she says, staring at the check like it might disappear if she blinks. You've just saved us. You've saved everything we're trying to build here. No, I tell her, standing up and shaking her hand again. You've saved me. I've been so busy playing corporate games that I forgot what it feels like to invest in something that actually matters. As I'm walking back to my car, I pull out my phone and dial Patricia Wells. Patricia, it's Marcus. Remember that emerging legal market opportunity you mentioned? Yeah, I just wrote them a check for $10 million. And Patricia, this isn't about revenge anymore. This is about building something real. For the first time since this whole mess started, I'm not thinking about Clara or Victor or the smoking ruins of Hale and Winters. I'm thinking about what comes next. And it feels a hell of a lot better than looking backward. 3 weeks after I basically adopted a scrappy legal collective in Brooklyn, like some kind of philanthropic sugar daddy, Clara calls me with a proposal that's about as appealing as a root canal performed by a drunk dentist. She wants to meet for coffee to discuss our public narrative, which is PR speak for help me figure out how to spin this disaster so I don't look like a complete idiot. The location she picks is Café Orpheus, one of those aggressively neutral Upper West Side spots where divorced couples go to hash out custody agreements and failed business partners meet to divide up what's left of their dreams. It's the kind of place that serves $15 avocado toast and has enough ambient noise to cover heated conversations without making them sound like Jerry Springer episodes. I arrive exactly on time because punctuality is just another form of psychological warfare and find Clara already sitting at a corner table with her laptop open and what looks like a legal pad covered in talking points. She's wearing a navy blue business suit that screams professional competence and makeup that's probably designed to hide the fact that she hasn't been sleeping well since her empire collapsed. Marcus, she says as I sit down, her voice carrying that careful modulation lawyers use when they're trying to sound reasonable while asking for unreasonable things. Thank you for coming. I know this is complicated. I order black coffee from a waitress who looks young enough to be my daughter and settle back in my chair with the kind of relaxed confidence that comes from holding all the cards in a game where your opponent is still trying to figure out what game they're playing. So I say, stirring cream into my coffee with the deliberate slowness of someone who has nowhere else to be and all the time in the world. What's this about, Clara? She slides her laptop across the table like she's presenting evidence in a murder trial. On the screen is a draft press release that's been formatted with all the professional polish of a Fortune 500 company's damage control statement. The headline reads, Hale Legal Partners announces leadership transition. I start reading and with every sentence my appreciation for the creative use of the English language grows exponentially. According to this masterpiece of corporate fiction, Clara is stepping back from operational duties to focus on strategic client relationships. My acquisition of controlling interest in the firm is described as a planned transition to optimize operational efficiency. The complete absence of Victor Cross from any mention in the document is apparently because he's pursuing new opportunities in the private sector. It's like reading a fairy tale written by someone who learned creative writing from SEC filing documents. This is interesting, I say after finishing the entire thing, which takes about 3 minutes because it's mostly buzzwords strung together with corporate nonsense. Very creative. Clara leans forward with the kind of hopeful expression that suggests she actually thinks I might be buying what she's selling. I worked with our communications consultant to craft something that protects everyone's reputation while explaining the transition in terms that the legal community can understand. Our communications consultant, I repeat slowly, you mean the same communications consultant who charged my company $20,000 to plan a launch party where you publicly divorced me? Her face flushes slightly, but she pushes forward like a lawyer who's already committed to a bad argument. Marcus, we both have reputations to protect. This statement allows us to move forward without unnecessary damage to either of our professional standing. I close the laptop and slide it back across the table. Clara, this reads like something a politician would release after getting caught embezzling campaign fonts. It's 90% wrapped in 10% fancy vocabulary. It's a professional statement that it's a lie. I interrupt her gently but firmly. Every single sentence in that document is designed to hide the truth instead of explaining it. You want to protect our reputations? Let's start by telling people what actually happened. She stares at me like I just suggested we take out a full-page ad in the New York Times admitting to war crimes. You want me to tell the truth? The actual truth? Crazy concept, I know, but yes, I want you to tell the truth. For the next 2 hours, we sit in that cafe rewriting Clara's fairy tale into something that resembles actual journalism. It's like performing surgery on a piece of creative writing, cutting away all the corporate speak and media training until what's left is raw, honest, and probably more devastating than anything I could have written myself. The first draft Clara produces is still mostly garbage, but it's garbage that's moving in the right direction. Instead of stepping back from operational duties, she writes, resigning from leadership positions. Instead of planned transition, she admits to financial restructuring following the withdrawal of major investment. But it's still not enough. Try again, I tell her, handing back her laptop after deleting half of what she's written. This time, pretend you're explaining it to your father. Judge Winters doesn't do corporate speak, Clara. He does facts. The mention of her father hits like a slap across the face. Judge Robert Winters is old school judiciary, the kind of man who believes that words should mean what they say and say what they mean. He's also the kind of father who raised his daughter to believe that integrity matters more than appearances, which makes Clara's current situation especially painful. She starts typing again, and this time the words that come out are sharper, cleaner, more honest. Instead of hiding behind passive voice and corporate euphemisms, she starts taking responsibility for decisions that led to consequences. Marcus Hale provided the financial foundation that made Hale and Winters LLP possible. She writes, my personal choices jeopardized that investment and damaged the professional relationship that the firm was built on. It's getting better, but it's still not the whole truth. What about Victor? I ask. She stops typing and stares at the screen for a long moment. What about him? Are you going to mention that you were having an affair with your business partner while using your husband's money to fund both your firm and your relationship? Or are we going to pretend that's not relevant to the story? The question hangs in the air between us like smoke from a gun barrel. Clara's hands hover over the keyboard, probably running through all the different ways she could phrase this particular truth without completely destroying what's left of her professional reputation. I made personal choices that compromised my professional judgment, she finally types. Those choices led to decisions that were unfair to my investors and damaging to the firm's financial stability. It's still corporate speak, but it's corporate speak that acknowledges reality instead of trying to pretend it never happened. We spend another hour refining the language, cutting away the last bits of spin and public relations nonsense until what's left is something that might actually qualify as honest. By the time we're finished, Clara's statement reads like it was written by someone who understands the difference between accepting responsibility and managing public perception. The final version includes an acknowledgement that I funded the firm's entire operation, an admission that her personal decisions led to the firm's financial crisis, and a clear statement that she's stepping down from all leadership roles to allow for proper restructuring under new management. This is going to destroy my reputation, she says, reading through the final draft one more time. Your reputation was destroyed the moment you decided to publicly humiliate the man who bankrolled your entire operation. I tell her this is just acknowledging what everyone already knows. She stares at the screen for another long moment, probably weighing the cost of honesty against the price of continued deception. Then, without any fanfare or dramatic speeches, she hits schedule and sets the statement to go live on the firm's website and social media accounts tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. there, she says, closing the laptop with a finality that sounds like a coffin lid slamming shut. The truth is requested. The truth is required. I correct her. This should have been your first instinct, not your last resort. As I'm getting ready to leave, Clara reaches across the table and touches my hand for just a moment. Marcus, for what it's worth, I never wanted it to end like this. I know, I tell her honestly. But wanting something and working for it are two very different things. You wanted to have your cake and eat it, too. I wanted a wife who understood that marriage is supposed to be a partnership, not a business transaction. Outside the cafe, I pull out my phone and call Patricia Wells. Patricia, it's Marcus. Clara is releasing a statement tomorrow morning. Yes, it's honest. No, she's not going to like the reaction. And Patricia, make sure our media people are ready to field calls. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I can already hear the phones ringing at law firms across Manhattan as the legal gossip network processes the news that Clara Winters-Hale just admitted to imploding her own firm through spectacular professional misconduct. Tomorrow morning, the truth finally gets to see daylight. And after months of living in Clara's carefully constructed fantasy, that feels like a victory all by itself. You know what's funny about the truth? It spreads faster than gossip and hits harder than a freight train carrying lawsuits. Clara's statement goes live at exactly 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. And by 9:15, my phone is buzzing like an angry hornet's nest with calls from reporters, lawyers, and probably half the legal establishment in Manhattan who suddenly want to know everything about Marcus Hale. I'm sitting in my apartment nursing my second cup of Colombian coffee and watching the sunrise paint Central Park in shades of gold and possibility when the first call comes in. It's from Legal Times, then Above the Law, then something called Manhattan Law Weekly that I'm pretty sure didn't exist yesterday, but apparently has very strong opinions about corporate restructuring and boutique firms. The best part, I don't answer a single one of them. Instead, I pour myself another cup of coffee and settle in to watch the digital wildfire spread across social media like spilled gasoline meeting a lit cigarette. LinkedIn explodes with hot takes from lawyers who want everyone to know they saw this coming all along. Twitter becomes a battlefield between people who think Clara got what she deserved and people who think I'm some kind of corporate monster for pulling my own money out of a business run by people who betrayed me. By noon, the story has made it to the front page of the New York Law Journal with a headline that reads, "Power Couple's Public Divorce Exposes Law Firm Financial Crisis." The article includes quotes from sources close to the situation who apparently have very detailed knowledge of my personal finances and very strong opinions about my character. But here's the thing about being Marcus Hale. When you've already won the war, watching people argue about the battle tactics is just entertainment. The real fun starts around 2 p.m. when my email inbox begins filling up with opportunities that would have seemed impossible just 6 months ago. Columbia Law School wants me to guest lecture on entrepreneurial finance and legal startups. The New York State Bar Association is asking if I'd be interested in serving on their ethics committee, which is either ironic or perfectly appropriate, depending on your perspective. 3 different nonprofit organizations want to discuss potential partnerships, and someone from the mayor's office is asking if I'd consider joining an advisory board on small business development. It's like watching your reputation get rebuilt in real time, except this time it's being built on a foundation of honesty instead of carefully managed public relations. The most interesting call comes from Dr. Eleanor Hartwell at NYU's Business School, who wants to know if I'd be willing to participate in a case study about financial accountability and professional services partnership. Apparently, my systematic dismantling of Clara's empire is being taught as an example of how to protect investment interests when personal relationships go sideways. I'm famous, but for all the right reasons this time. Around 4:00 p.m., I decide to escape the chaos and take a walk through Central Park. It's one of those perfect October afternoons when the leaves are just starting to turn and the air has that crisp quality that makes you grateful to be alive in New York City. I'm walking past the Shakespeare Garden thinking about nothing more complicated than whether to grab dinner at that Italian place I like when my phone buzzes with a text from Patricia Wells. Victor Cross just posted on LinkedIn. You should probably see this. I find a bench and pull up Victor's profile, which now features a lengthy post that reads like a suicide note written by someone who learned creative writing from corporate legal documents. He's apparently taking time to reassess career priorities and exploring opportunities outside the traditional legal framework. It's the kind of language people use when they're unemployed but too proud to admit it. The comments section is a bloodbath of former colleagues offering hollow sympathy while probably updating their contact lists to remove his information. It's professional death by 1,000 cuts. And I'd almost feel sorry for him if he hadn't spent 2 years screwing my wife while spending my money. By the time I get home, there are 17 voicemails waiting for me, including one from Judge Robert Winters that simply says, "Marcus, call me when you get a chance. We should talk." Clara's father has always been a straight shooter. The kind of man who doesn't waste words or time on pleasantries when there's serious business to discuss. I call him back immediately because ignoring Judge Winters is the kind of mistake that follows you around for the rest of your life. "Marcus," he answers on the first ring. I read Clara's statement. I also read the coverage in the legal press. "Are you doing okay?" It's such a simple question, but coming from him, it carries the weight of genuine concern. Judge Winters watched his daughter destroy her marriage and her career, and somehow he's asking if I'm okay. "I'm better than I've been in years, Judge," I tell him honestly. "Thank you for asking." "Good. That's good." There's a pause and I can hear him choosing his words carefully. "Marcus, I want you to know that what Clara did, the way she handled this situation, that's not how I raised her. That's not the kind of person I thought she was. People change, Judge. Sometimes they show you who they really were all along. Maybe so, but I want you to know that you handled this with more class than most men would have shown. You could have destroyed her completely, and you didn't. After I hang up, I realize that Judge Winters is right. I could have destroyed Clara completely. I could have made sure she never practiced law again. Could have turned her into a cautionary tale that law students study for decades. Instead, I gave her a chance to rebuild, albeit on a much smaller scale and with a much clearer understanding of how the world actually works. Maybe that makes me a better man than I thought I was. Or maybe it just makes me someone who's learned the difference between justice and revenge. That evening, I'm getting ready for dinner when my doorman calls up to announce that I have a visitor. Dr. Camille Rodas from Columbia Law School. Sir, says she has an appointment. I don't remember scheduling any appointments, but something about the name sounds familiar. It takes me a moment to place it. She's the ethics professor who was quoted in one of the articles about Clara's statement talking about fiduciary responsibility and professional partnership. Dr. Camille Rodas turns out to be a woman in her early 40s with the kind of sharp intelligence that comes through in everything from her handshake to the way she looks around my apartment like she's cataloging details for future reference. She's wearing jeans and a Columbia sweatshirt, which suggests this isn't a formal business call. Mr. Hale, she says, settling into the chair across from my couch like she belongs there. I hope you don't mind the unscheduled visit. I was in the neighborhood and I've been following your situation with great interest. Academic interest? I ask, pouring 2 glasses of wine because something tells me this conversation is going to require alcohol. Professional and personal, she admits. What you did to Hale and Winters, the way you structured your withdrawal, the legal mechanisms you used to protect your investment. It's brilliant. Ethically sound, legally airtight, and more elegant than anything I've seen in 20 years of studying corporate accountability. We talk for 3 hours about everything from business ethics to the future of legal education. And by the time she leaves, I realize 2 things. First, that I haven't had a conversation this intellectually stimulating since before Clara and I got married. And second, that Dr. Camille Rodas has the kind of smile that makes you want to figure out what makes her laugh. As I'm cleaning up the wine glasses, I catch myself smiling for no particular reason except that for the first time in years, the future feels like something worth looking forward to instead of something to survive. Tomorrow, I start teaching a seminar at Columbia on entrepreneurial finance. Next week, I'm meeting with the Phoenix legal team to discuss expansion plans. And sometime soon, I might just ask Dr. Camille Rodas if she'd like to continue our conversation over dinner. The war with Clara is over, and I won. But more importantly, I'm finally ready to start building something new. 6 months after the spectacular implosion of what used to be Clara's legal empire, I'm sitting in my new apartment on the Upper West Side, grading papers from my Columbia Law School seminar on entrepreneurial finance when the FedEx courier shows up with a package that's about to close the final chapter of the Marcus Hale revenge story. The apartment is smaller than my old place. No marble countertops or floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, but it gets sunlight. Real honest-to-God sunlight. That streams through normal-sized windows and makes everything feel warm and alive instead of like a museum exhibit designed to impress people I never really liked. Anyway, the FedEx envelope is addressed in handwriting I recognize immediately, even though it's been months since I've seen Clara's distinctive cursive. No return address, but the Portland postmark tells me everything I need to know about how far she's fallen from the Manhattan legal scene she once thought she was going to conquer. I pour myself a cup of coffee, regular coffee, not the $20 a pound Colombian stuff I used to drink because expensive was supposed to mean better, and settle into the reading chair I bought from a furniture store in Queens instead of some boutique showroom where they charge extra for the privilege of being condescended to by interior designers. The letter inside is written on plain white paper, the kind you can buy at any drugstore, and it's only 1 page long. But sometimes 1 page is enough to say everything that needs saying. Marcus *. I moved to Portland 3 months ago. I know that probably doesn't surprise you. Everyone in the New York legal community knows by now that Clara Winters Hale is persona non grata east of the Hudson River. I work at a nonprofit clinic now, helping people who can't afford lawyers navigate immigration cases and housing disputes. The pay is terrible. The office is in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. And I've never been happier to go to work in the morning. I understand now what you tried to tell me that night in your apartment. I understand the difference between being respected and being famous, between building something real and building something that looks good in legal trade publications. I spent 8 years married to a man who supported my dreams even when I didn't deserve his support. And I threw it all away because I thought I needed to prove something to people whose opinions shouldn't have mattered. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness or understanding or even acknowledgement that this letter exists, but I wanted you to know that I'm different now. Not better necessarily, but different. Real asterisk. The woman who served you divorce papers at that party was playing a character she thought she was supposed to be. The woman writing this letter is just Clara trying to figure out how to live with the choices she made and the bridges she burned. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. Asterisk Clara asterisk. I read the letter twice, then fold it carefully and slide it into the desk drawer where I keep important documents that I'm not ready to throw away but don't need to look at every day. Next to tax returns and insurance policies and the deed to this apartment that nobody helped me pick out because I'm perfectly capable of choosing my own goddamn living space. There's no anger in me anymore when I think about Clara. No bitterness or resentment or desire for further revenge. Just a kind of distant sadness for the woman she could have been if she'd figured out who she actually was before she tried to become someone else. The irony is that the Clara who wrote this letter, the one working in a strip mall legal clinic making terrible money to help people who actually need help. That's the woman I fell in love with 10 years ago. That's the woman I would have supported and encouraged and built a life with if she'd existed anywhere except in my memory of who she used to be. But that woman disappeared somewhere between law school graduation and the first time someone called her a rising star in Manhattan legal circles. She got replaced by someone who cared more about appearances than reality. More about being seen as successful than actually doing work that mattered. Maybe Portland will give her a chance to find her way back to who she was supposed to be. Maybe working in that strip mall clinic will teach her the difference between having a career and having a calling. Maybe she'll figure out that respect has to be earned through actions, not bought with other people's money. Or maybe she won't. Maybe this is just another performance, another carefully crafted image designed to make me think she's learned something she hasn't actually learned. I've been fooled by Clara Winters before, and the smart money says I shouldn't trust anything she says or writes or claims to believe. But here's the thing about being Marcus Hale. I don't have to figure out whether Clara's redemption arc is real or fake. That's her problem to solve, not mine. My phone buzzes with a text from Camille Rodas. Dr. Camille Rodas, who turned out to be exactly as brilliant and funny and genuinely interesting as she seemed that first night she showed up at my door unannounced. We've been dating for 3 months now. If you can call it dating, when two middle-aged professionals grab dinner between teaching schedules and discuss constitutional law over wine like it's the most natural thing in the world. Dinner at 7. That new Ethiopian place in the village. I text back. Perfect. Just finished grading papers. Ready for food that doesn't come with student complaints about grade curves? Bring the good wine. I have news about the Phoenix Legal expansion. The Phoenix Legal Collective has been the best investment I've made in years, and not just financially. Lydia Torres and her team have opened 3 new offices across the city, hired 47 new attorneys, and won some cases that have corporate legal departments genuinely nervous about treating poor people like they're disposable. Last month, they convinced a federal judge to certify a class action lawsuit against one of the biggest property management companies in New York, representing over 2,000 tenants who were illegally charged fees that nobody bothered to explain or justify. The settlement is going to run into 8 figures, and every penny of it goes to people who actually need the money instead of lawyers who already have too much. That's what victory looks like when you're building something instead of destroying something. When you're creating value instead of just redistributing wealth from people who trusted you to people who betrayed them. I look out my window at the street below where normal people are living normal lives without worrying about legal empires or corporate restructuring or whether their spouse is planning to publicly humiliate them at parties they paid for. A couple is walking hand in hand toward the subway, probably heading to jobs that don't require them to question everyone's motives or document every financial transaction. Like they're preparing for war. That could be me and Camille in 6 months or a year or whenever we figure out that what we have is worth making official. Walking to dinner without checking our phones for urgent messages from lawyers or accountants or business partners who think the world will end if they don't have immediate answers to questions that could wait until tomorrow. The sunlight is starting to fade, painting my apartment in shades of gold and amber that make everything look warm and possible. In an hour, I'll meet Camille at that Ethiopian restaurant, and we'll talk about Phoenix Legal's expansion plans and her research on legal ethics, and maybe what we're doing next weekend when neither of us has papers to grade or cases to review. Later tonight, I'll come home to this apartment that belongs entirely to me, pour myself a glass of wine that costs exactly what wine should cost, and read a book that has nothing to do with business or law or revenge or any of the things that consumed my life for the past year. Tomorrow, I'll teach eager law students about the intersection of entrepreneurship and ethics, help Lydia Torres figure out how to fund legal clinics in underserved communities, and maybe take Camille to that art gallery opening she mentioned. The war with Clara is over. The reconstruction of Marcus Hale is complete, and for the first time in longer than I care to remember, the future feels like something to build instead of something to survive. I close the desk drawer with Clara's letter inside and walk toward the window where the last of the afternoon sunlight is turning the city into something that looks almost like hope. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't destroying your enemies. It's building a life so good that their betrayal becomes irrelevant. And that, I realize, is the ultimate victory.